Thank you, Mr. Chairman, friend, colleague, member of Northern St. Michael. He and I tend to think alike, so I will try to avoid repeating anything that he might have said. I want to begin, though, by, of course, hoping that you are enjoying the Christmas season and wishing you all the very best for the year 2018. I'll come back to that a bit later, though, towards the end of my speech. Today, just 3 days before the end of this year, we find ourselves really light years away from where we expected we would have been at this time. And light years away from where we should be at this time. But the fact is that Barbados has not only lost 2017, Barbados actually lost the last 10 years of its existence. From top to bottom, left to right, everyone in this country has been hit by this Democratic Labour Party government. Other places, small countries in the region that used to look up to Barbados as a model, have gone ahead of us now. And we now find ourselves playing catch up with them as our people suffer at the hands of a government that is obviously out of its depth. All the problems that were there at the beginning of this year and before are still there, and some more have been added as well. Right now we have the poor getting poorer, middle class struggling to make ends meet and fighting for its own survival. Employed have become the working poor. The economy is in shambles, and we are going downhill at a very rapid pace with only a few people in this country benefiting from the policies of this government. And the list goes on and on and on with no light at the end of the tunnel. So you have poor people in the north still crying out that they're getting brown water or no water at all. You're seeing an increase in VAT, but there's been no corresponding increase in your standard or quality of life. You're seeing your personal allowances taxed. You're seeing an increase in the licenses and fees of virtually every artisan and professional in this country, from the mechanic right up to the doctor or lawyer, have to pay more to practice their profession. You can't even nowadays request and get something as simple as a street light. You can imagine that? The roads in Barbados now are deplorable, and I can tell you about that because I have one in my constituency called Well Gap. And I actually wrote to the minister in 2015, after the road was too bad to endure any longer. And to this day, I have not even got an acknowledgement of that letter. And then they went in there in 2016, last year or early this year, and dug a trench where the machinery actually damaged the road even more. A trench to replace existing main to take commercial natural gas through Carefield down to Spring Garden with no benefit whatsoever to the residents of Belgap or Carefield. And no matter how much I plead and plead and plead, they're not responding to get that done. You know what I was told? Well, when the BLP get back in power, you could fix it. Well, I give the people of Carefield the assurance that if the Barbados Labour Party is returned to government, that I will fix the road in Belgap. Healthcare costs in this country have gone up. You heard Joe just speak about the cost of education. I also do some part-time tutoring at university, and I've also seen the rapid decrease in the numbers of registrants at the university. And of course, there's the frustration associated with the country and the people who are losing hope. And hence we're seeing now the increase in violent crimes, especially gun crimes. Everything in this country is going up except your wages and salaries. And there's no safety net either being provided for the poor people in this country. Even in the area of tourism, where I will spend some time, which is being touted as this major success, I will show to you that that sector is underperforming. And the minister really is trying to get away with murder because it is not only underperforming, but there are real issues in that ministry that actually make you sick to the core when you really get to look at them, which is what I will try to do with you now for the next few minutes, in the 10 minutes that I was told that I had. 15, okay. Well, I coming down when I'm ready. Now, the Minister of Tourism has announced that there exists something called a master plan on tourism. Now, you might not know this, but a master plan, and that master plan costs over $1 million to come up with. Over $1 million. And to this day, none of us in here knows what is in that tourism master plan. It has never been brought to Parliament and debated. We don't know if it is that the minister has not produced it because he has decided to reject it. If so, he should tell us, and tell us what he will do with the consultants to whom they're paid over $1 million to do a master plan. But it is a carefully guarded secret what is in this tourism master plan. Now, if a sector is performing, as they say it is, you would expect that employment would be up in the sector. But not so. Only as recently as today, I was told by a hotelier that people have been laid off at his hotel. And even though that the season is in progress, people have only, a number of them have only been restored to some 2 and 3 days per week. So where is this great success we're hearing about in the tourism sector? Now we can look at the numbers. Because the minister years ago, when he couldn't say anything about numbers at all, and I told him that tourism is really a numbers game, he has now all of a sudden decided to make reference to numbers and to talk about record years in arrivals. The problem with him is that he looks at the wrong numbers. When you talk about Barbados having a record number of tourist arrivals, when you examine the statistics and you look back from when Barbados started recording arrivals to Barbados, almost every year, upon year upon year, the numbers used to go up. That is what is supposed to happen. You're supposed to do better and better and better every year until you reach your limit, your threshold. Until then, really, it is no major boast that you have a record year. The minister is saying the last 2 years were a record year, and this is going to be another record year. But that is how it's supposed to be. Every year is supposed to be better than the previous year. And when you examine the stats, you will see that that's how it has been happening. One or two valleys along the way, but by and large, up and up and up and up. But the important thing is not how many tourists come, but how much money a country makes from the tourists that come to the country. And this is where the minister is not spending any time at all, because when the minister looks at the figures for how much tourists spent in Barbados or how much Barbados earned from tourism in the last couple of years, you'll see that, in fact, in 2015, between 2015 and 2016, a significantly increased larger number of tourists spent less than they spent in Barbados some 10 years ago. And I want to just pause and spend a little time on this because, as I said, the minister is really trying to get away with murder. And you really can't let him do that. Because I took the time to be fair to him. And I recognize that he's been a minister for 9 years. So I decided, well, let's compare his 9-year reign with other 9-year reigns that came before him. In that way, you are comparing like with like, and you're being fair to him. So I looked at the period 1976 to 1985. And I saw that long-stay tourist arrivals to Barbados increased by 60% over that 9-year period. And the amount that tourists spent in Barbados over that 9-year period increased by 273%. Between 1986 and 1994, that is not a 9-year period, S6816 is blocking the driveway and the person needs to leave home. S6816. 1986 to 1994, that was not a 9-year period because they couldn't make it for 9 years in government. There had been such dogfighting between them that they turned on themselves and brought down their own prime minister by a no-confidence motion in Parliament. But over that period, arrivals increased by 15%, and the earnings for Barbados from tourism increased by 76.5%. Between 1995 and 2004, arrivals increased by 24.7%, and tourist spend accordingly increased by 24.6%. So the pattern always was an increase in tourist arrivals and an increase in spend, how much money tourists spend in Barbados. But Richard Seeley decided to change that. And for the period between 2008 and 2016, arrivals increased by 10.9%, but the amount that tourists spent in Barbados decreased by some 12.8%. So he's the only man who managed to get less from more. He's probably what we call a reverse magician. He gets less, you normally get more from less. He is getting less from more. And I want to share that with you because he's trying to get away with murder. And this is the performance that you are getting from a minister who, as this is happening, now even decided to pause 1 minute to think and try and figure out, but why is this happening? He just continues to say a record number of tourists is coming to Barbados. And what is worse about all this, that shameful performance, is that this is a minister with not one or two, but for the first time in our history, with 3 consultants. 3, earning approximately $10,000 per month each. 3 consultants. And it has some nepotism in it too, because one of them was appointed by a board on which his wife sits. That's a fact. And as a minister with 3 consultants and cannot get Barbados to make money from tourism. The story goes on with tourism. You have the South Coast Tourist Project. Now, not project. This is affecting individuals. It is affecting households. It is affecting businesses. In fact, it is causing some businesses to close down, as you would have heard up there. It's affecting people's health. It is obviously a health hazard. Now, you would think that a government would recognize that that has to be A1 priority in terms of being fixed. Because that stands to destroy not only the South Coast, but that stands to destroy tourism across the whole of Barbados. And mere monthly, I remember in 2015, at the annual conference at Foundation School, if my memory serves me correctly, actually made a reference to this. And she wasn't just talking out of her head. She was reading from documents that she had that had fallen off of various trucks. And she was reading and she was telling the country what to expect, that a problem was looming and that the government needed to look at it. Instead of looking at it, they dismissed what she said as lies, mischief, etc., and foolishness, and refused to look at it. And now what she has said has come to pass. And now every single day, with this problem down there, you're hearing a new statement, there's a new discovery, there's new or different equipment being brought in, but the problem is still persisting, and you're getting a new excuse every single day. The Minister of Tourism cannot or does not seem to recognize that he should care sufficiently to impress on his government that this is a one priority and needs to be fixed right away. This is one of these issues where you have to drop whatever you are doing and make sure you get this problem fixed. But the Minister of Tourism is being hailed a success. What success can you be when filth is flowing on the streets of this country? Then you have discrimination in the sector, the creation of two Barbaduses, and a total lack of transparency in the way in which things are being done in this country. And nowhere is that more clearly evident than in the Ministry of Tourism. At the Bridgetown port, one man was given 2 contracts valued $64 million. The first one for $50 million to build a berth, a company that had never built anything like that before. In a situation where there was no bidding process. In fact, the contract was awarded to this company on the basis of an unsolicited bid. In other words, bids were not invited. He just interjected himself in the process. And what he said, and discussions took place, and he was awarded a contract on the basis of an unsolicited bid with no tendering whatsoever, no experience at all, nothing for the port to check and decide if this thing could have been done by anybody else for cheaper. No inquiries at all. And as that was going on for $50 million, it was then decided to do a yachting facility for another $15 million. And that same contractor was just asked if he would do the same thing, build the Autumn facility for $15 million more, again with no tendering, no experience in building it, and no transparent process or competitive bidding process whatsoever. $64 million just to one man at the Bridgetown port alone. Equipment had to be acquired. And I accept that when you're dealing with that sort of equipment, real high-tech equipment and so on, heavy-duty stuff, that there are very limited suppliers in the world. I don't expect you to go to tender to that. And I expect that you have to get an agent to help you secure that equipment. I accept all that. But there are about what? But there are at least, NASA, about 275,000 people in Barbados, and about how many billions in the world? About 6 or 7 billion in the world. And of all of those people, the same man again, that same one man was chosen as the agent to go and secure equipment for the Barbados Port Authority. So what is it that we're coming? Where is the transparency in all this? And you know something? You know, if I did not happen to get this information earlier this year, because every now and again I drive behind a truck too. That's a fact. And if I did not happen to get this information earlier this year, and reveal this sordid story in Parliament, this would have been kept as a big secret. Except that the port is still 100% owned by government, which means it's 100% owned by us. And eventually, all this money you hear me talking about will have to be repaid by all of us in here. That's a fact. Then you have the Hyatt Hotel. Went about it the wrong way, so he ended up in court, has not yet really gotten off the ground. But secrecy again surrounds the project. Because when last we heard, we know that government owns a portion of the land on which the hotel is to be built. That has been transferred to the BTII, which is 100% government owned, so it's still land owned by government. To this day, we do not know if the government intends, because it has not said, if it intends to inject that land in the project and therefore become a part owner of the project. It has not said if it intends to or has sold the land to the other private developers, and if so, at what price and pursuant to what valuation. Neither has it said if it has or intends to lease the land to the developer, and if so, on what terms. Everything is a big secret in this country. Everything, and it's your money at stake. The Four Seasons Project. When last have you heard a word out of the government about the Four Seasons Project? We had 18 promises from between Chris Sinclair and Richard Seeley as to when that project was going to restart. And as I speak to you, it is still just old rust and grass down there. Now, if it had remained a private sector project, as it was originally, that might have been okay. But the problem is that this government, against the argument and advice of the Barbados Labour Party in Parliament, coming from me, because at the time I still am the Shadow Minister of Tourism. And when this came before Parliament, that government was saying it was going to give a guarantee in the sum of $120 million for this project, we said, leave the private sector to deal with its issues, particularly this issue. Do not go and guarantee that. But we were small in numbers. We got voted $120 million guarantee. It got called, as a result of which now Barbadians are left holding the bag for $120 million. Now, we heard the former governor of the central bank say that the project was going to be sold for some $40 million. We haven't heard anything more since then. Everything is gone silent. So what is the position? Secrecy again. Is it going to be sold for $40 million, in which case we're going to lose $80 million? Are we going to lose the full $120 million? What is the position with this project? Big bucks are at stake. Then there's sandals, which is the biggest mystery of all. A letter, let me get it. A letter dated the 5th of November 2013, signed by Minister Sinclair and addressed to whom it may concern, and copied to the two companies that comprise Sandals and the Control of Customs. Made reference to a memorandum of understanding, and also set out certain concessions to be granted to these companies called Sandals in relation to the waiver of all taxes, duties, and everything payable for a period of 40 years. This gave, in effect, some $400 million in concessions to Sandals for 40 years. Now, this was confirmed in the order also signed by the same minister on the 9th of March 2015. But the thing about these concessions is that they were restricted to Casuarina Hotel only. When you read these things, Casuarina Hotel only was to benefit from these concessions. Now, because of these concessions, Sandals made what it would call obscene profits. They had to pay government practically nothing. They paid nothing directly to government. They only bring into Barbados, because this is the all-inclusive concept, they only bring into Barbados money to pay staff and operating expenses and that sort of thing, but the rest of money is kept overseas. They make a wash of money saving on them as a result of these concessions. So they decided that they weren't even going to expand the hotel, but they're going to build a new one. And they built now Sandals Royal or Royal Sandals? Royal Sandals. Royal Sandals. They built that now. Now I want to just know if these same concessions that apply to Casuarina Hotel only are already applying or will apply to Royal Sandals. And if so, pursuant to what? Because they are not covered in the present letter or order signed by the Minister of Finance. And I want to know if when the property in St. Peter, the beaches, when that is finished, if that too will be covered by or will be granted the same concessions granted to Casuarina Hotel only. Because if they do and they tidy it up, it will mean that Sandals will become the single largest owner of hotel rooms in Barbados. The single largest it will be almost a monopoly and will be able to control price and so on. But not only that, it will be owning over 1,000 rooms. It will be granted over $1 billion in concessions while making no direct payments whatsoever to this government. And I want to know, you and I, we have to pay taxes. I certainly pay mine. Are you telling the company that you're going to give it 1,000 rooms and over $1 billion in concessions and pay no taxes or other direct charges for a period in the first instance of 25 years, and for the 15 years after that, only half of what you should be paying in duties and taxes? Then there's the sale of government's hotel assets. First, we had Time Out at the Gap, valued $10.5 million. And that's only because hotel values were frozen. If they had not been frozen, it would really be valued more. But it valued $10.5 million. This government sells it for $7.3 million and tries to keep it hush-hush. Now, this is a 72-room property across the road, not on the sea, but across the road from the sea. They sell it for $7.3 million. Just compare for a second Clifton Hall Great House in St. John. Inland, away from everything. And the asking price for that is US $3.9 million, save Barbados $8 million for property inland. And they're selling, is a 6-bedroom or so setup. And they are selling a 72-room hotel just off the sea for $7.3 million when it is valued at $10.5 million. That's not a sale. That's a giveaway. Blue Horizon, $5 million, although it valued at, what, $11 million now? Blue Horizon, and to this day, not an explanation given as to what are all the details surrounding the sale of Blue Horizon. The Hilton sold for 100, or to be sold, because again, secrecy, you don't know the exact status, but sold or to be sold for 160 million Barbados dollars. The book value is 270 million, and the market value is 290 million. But they are going to sell it, or have already sold it, for $160 million. What really makes these things seem absurd and suspicious to see? They're wrong, and they're also suspicious, and they're bizarre, these sales, because government is divesting itself of ownership of these hotels that I just mentioned. Time Out, Blue Horizon, and the Hilton, for next to nothing. So you would think that government has made a decision that we are getting out of the hotel ownership business. If you're selling hotels for practically nothing, you're getting out of the business. You sell out when you decide you're getting out of the business. But far from them getting out of the business, they've given away these properties for next to nothing, and then have turned around now and decided to borrow $250 million US dollars from the Chinese government to repay with interest to build a property at Sam Lord's. Does that make any sense at all to you? That 1 minute you decide you're selling out your assets, you're still divesting your hotel properties, but then turn around after that, the next minute, and you said you're going to borrow $250 million US from the Chinese government with interest to repair, to build a hotel, to own a hotel up there as well. And to make it worse, it's a hotel that will be employing 60% Chinese labor on the project. Now, and Cameron will tell you otherwise, but 60% is greater than 40%. It's only going to be 40% Barbadians, but 60% Chinese. And it's going to be operated by Wyndham Hotel, which cannot compare in any way to the Hilton brand. But they are going to do away with the Hilton, give it away, and pick up Wyndham. Somebody is getting really fat out of these deals. Somebody getting real fat. Something does not smell right. In fact, the odor associated with this is more foul than that coming from the sewage on the south coast, to be honest with you. And they will be paid back. These things offend me, because there's right and there's wrong. But I heard just Joe tell me, give me a hint, suggesting that the 10 minutes might have gone. But the thing is that at the end of the day, despite all that I am saying up here, we only have the talk, but you have the power. You got the power. Now, at the beginning, I told you that I would get back to this Happy New Year thing. Now I'm telling you that you need to make some New Year's resolutions. You need to. I have decided that I am going to lose some weight. I have decided. I think that I could lose a pound or two. So when you see me, do not offer me any chocolates, any sweet bread, nothing of the sort. I'm not eating anything sweet at all. When you see me in about 3 or 4 months' time, you're going to see a different man. Well, from the 1st of January, I'm going up to the 1st of January. After that, the no sweet applies. Now, I've decided that. As for you, y'all in here, you know when last you had a wage or salary increase. You know that. You know when last your income tax refunds were sent to you. You know when last, if you're a business, you know when last you got your VAT refunds. You know when last you got a reverse tax credit. You all know when last all these things happen. So you have to make some resolutions for 2018 as well. And one of the resolutions that you have to make is that you intend and you will do all that is in your power and that is legal to get rid of this government when elections are called, and to ensure that the Barbados Labour Party governs this country once again. And you have to ensure that that not only beautiful but talented, competent, and experienced Mayor Morley is the next Prime Minister of this country. That is what you have to ensure. And I want to make a plea to you this afternoon. And the country is depending on us. It is really only when the Barbados Labour Party is in government that this country enjoys any real prosperity. And I want you, now I have to display my bias this evening because I am the head of the Northern St. Michael zone. And I have to display my bias this evening, right? So I want you to accept my logic, what I'm going to tell you now. I want you to look at the composition of Northern St. Michael Group, particularly Ian, Joe, and Arthur Holder. I want you to look at the three of them, and at the same time, look at the results of the last elections. Now, I want the Dems to suffer a very crushing defeat. I want them to be humiliated. That is a fact. But look at what I just told you about Ian, Joe, and Arthur. When you look at this report, I really don't read reports that much, but I took a little time to look at this. And you will see that in the last elections, those three names that I just called were three of the four best unsuccessful candidates in the last election. There were three of the best. And Joe really actually, he did better than the national average. He did better than the party did in terms of the national swing and so on. I didn't get a chance to check the others. You're talking razor thin margins of defeat. Arthur Holder lost by 39 votes. To this day, I don't quite understand why there was no recount or why they ended up in court or something. St. Michael West, Joe lost by 125 votes. St. Michael West Central, Ian lost by 193 votes. And both Ian and Arthur were first-time candidates. So those performances were very, very commendable. And these three happen to be running again. They're the only three of those four that are running again, are running in the same constituencies. So what I'm saying to you, all you supporters in here this afternoon, and I have to wear my bias for Northern St. Michael on my sleeve, and I'm not making any apology for that. All you supporters in here of the Barbados Labour Party, your first loyalty is to the candidate in the constituency in which you live. And I accept that. But anytime you have any extra time or any spare time, I want you to make it possible to assist one of these three candidates who only need an oomph to get over the line next time. And once you look and see that we have currently 14 seats, this is simple. I was never that good at math, but even I know this. You look at having 14 seats currently, and if you operate on the assumption that you should win back those 14 seats, and you have three that clearly just want a little help, then in your spare time, you got to work with the candidate as much as they call on you, but you got to find a spare minute or two. And I'm asking you to get that spare minute or two to work with these candidates so that we can, this is, in my view, the easiest, fastest, and most direct journey or path to victory in the next election. And it is not going to be easy if and when we should win, and I am not out there promising anybody the moon and the stars. It will not be a case where if the Barbados Labour Party wins today, milk and honey will flow in the streets of Barbados tomorrow. That will not happen. This government has dug a hole too deep for us to just make those kind of statements, for us to believe that that will happen. But the quicker you get the best hands on deck, the quicker the country is going to come out of the mess that is in. We have done it before, and with your help, we can do it again. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you.